On the.
I always see him there on Wednesday because it's senior.
That's
Right?
right.
It's a senior
Well,
discount.
that's Mark.
Yeah, Martin's not my age.
Call the meeting to order. This is the November 6th meeting of the Central City Planning Commission. Welcome to everyone. I'm happy to introduce members of our commission. To my right, your left, Mr. Smith, Ms. Burzak, Mr. Ebert. My left, Mr. Flicka, Porter, Mr. Urick, Ms. Rice, and I'm Patsy Hartzell. All right, first item on the agenda, approval of the October 2nd, 2025 minutes. You probably gathered this by email that everybody got. When I first, the draft that was included in our packets, this wasn't acceptable. I had a little trouble with not any fault of staff. We have a glitch somewhere in the word processing system we're working on. I asked to have another copy run, taking as many of those typographical errors out, and that's what's on, hard copy is what's on your desk here. I'm advised by counsel that there are still some in here, and I think the underlining of the corrected mistakes probably should be there, but that's less important than making sure all the words are right. We'll start with content if it's now a little clearer. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Ignore typos for the moment. It's probably systemic. All right. I guess what council, do you recommend that we have those fixed and bring it back for review? Can we conditionally approve subject to that being provided at the next meeting? Or just hold till the next meeting?
I mean, you have the option of approving it contingent to those changes being made, basically missing letters. TIs, TCs, maybe.
Did you ever realize how many words had those combinations till you got these
I
minutes?
have a lot of circles on
I stopped counting at dozens, and so I just thought, okay, so we can approve conditionally subject to being the corrected minutes being provided to us. Okay, all right. Do I have a motion with regard to adoption of the minutes?
I will make a motion that we adopt the minutes, pending or contingent on the typographical errors being corrected.
All right, thank you, Mr. Everett. Do I have support for Mr. Everett's motion? Mr. Urick got me first. Sorry about that. Mr. Urick supports the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approve, same sign. Thank you. And thank you, Kristen, for doing as much as you were able to get done, because that was hard to read. All right, next item on the agenda, new business, city obtains certified redevelopment ready status. Kristen?
I'm just letting you all know that the city did finally become certified with the first one in Berrien County. And that opens us up, I guess, to some additional monies and services through the Michigan County Corporation.
Examples of which could be, or what's the city planning, or I'm sure they got a list of things, but where are we headed first?
That I don't know.
I got a comment regarding it.
Ms. Burzak?
So I attended in the past some of the redevelopment ready community development seminars and things, and there's a lot of work that goes into getting that status. And just like to thank Kristen and staff. I know Kristen was very instrumental in obtaining this, and I think it's really states and says for itself, that being the first community in Berrien County, I mean, it's an important designation, and hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of many things to come based on all these hard efforts that people put forth to get this.
Can't wait to hear what they're gonna be. I want to add to that, the planning commission. We were tasked with how many statute revisions? There's Trudy over there nodding. She had to sit
Yep.
through those meetings. I don't know how many statute, ordinance revisions we did with the direction that it would help us with compliance with, and attaining this goal. So to yourselves as well and our members, because those were some long meetings, but we got it done. So well done to the city. Thank you, Ms. Burzak. I concur. All right, old business. Oh, strike that. We wanted that first. Yeah. Housing choice and supply options, basically the agenda of today's meeting. You all saw the city commission, feels we do not have enough to do and has sent us this topic for review and approval. They have some hopeful guidelines. They understand that sometimes when we get deliberative, we can take even longer than, we do go into detail. But housing choice and supply options, and particularly, they want us to look at what I'll shorthand call ADUs, um, um, accessory dwelling units, but in the interest of time and everybody, we'll just go with ADU, or at least I will. This is, obviously not a public hearing, it's a kind of a borderline type workshop type of situation, getting thoughts. I'm assuming that's how I read it, and council jump in if I read the minutes wrong from the city commission meeting. They want some thoughts and ideas and guidance, I suspect, on going forward. The impression I got from reading the minutes was that that commission, as it was composed on that day and on that, at that time, was looking at this favorably. So kind of, I read it that way, but one input from the planning commission as directed. So we received a huge packet of materials. Thank Kristen and staff for putting that together. For me, I thought some of the frequently asked questions and guidance that was put out by certain other communities was particularly helpful and interesting to me. So it's really kind of just a random think session. Your thoughts about even though it does appear that the city commission has a point of view on this, I think that was pretty obvious. That doesn't mean everybody here shares that. So there can be a pro versus con. And then there'll also be, if going forward, as the city commission seems to be signaling they would like to go, then what regulations, rules, requirements, or lack thereof do we see or do we want to talk about in terms of recommendations before ordinances started getting drafted? That's how I interpreted tonight. Council, am I close to what was I mean, I was not at the city commission meeting, but am I in the ballpark of what they were looking for?
Yeah, my impression is that there's strong interest in developing additional housing options within the city, and they wanted the planning commission to consider accessory dwelling units, which can encompass a lot of different things. Kristen pulled together some information as a starting point. But I think the commission was definitely supportive of looking at that, having recommendations come back.
None of that expected tonight. Okay, just this is the very first that we've talked about it on any agenda.
I think there was you might have seen the timeline that was laid out. They
Yes.
just want to have some sort of.
Did they forget about the holidays?
I think, they just want to make sure it's kept to the forefront, so
Okay.
they, just kind of report back periodically, so that
All right.
was where that was coming from, not that it was finished by then, but this, how's it going, what's.
Okay, one thing that I want to throw out, just to get things rolling, and I've got a list of things, so I want to hear from everybody else first, except for this one point, and I would like input on this. One of the things for something like this, which would be a dramatic change. This has not previously been allowed, only in the most limited of circumstances. And one of the things I would like to do, and I'll seek staff and council's help in how to make this up. I would like as much input from as many neighborhoods in the city of St. Joe as possible on this issue. I want to hear from people on Morton, Will, and Thayer. I want to hear from people on Ridgeway. I want to hear from people up by the high school, Vale Court, in that area, South State Street. I want to hear from people behind the county administration building. I think of them as precinct 1, precinct 2, it's terrible. I think this is the kind of issue that it would be helpful. Now, nobody shows. So while we're in this workshop mode, it's not really a public hearing because there's no ordinance change yet in front of us. How do we get the word out that we are actively seeking participation, whether it's at the December meeting or the January meeting? December, you start running into holiday and all that. And how do we get the word out? Not suggesting sending a letter to all the residents of the city, but press release plus something to say, this is something for me, I want to hear from as many neighborhoods in the city on how they feel about this. How do we do that and is that something beyond just our normal posting of the agenda? We do that all the time, and as you can see, we're packing them in. So I'm thinking that maybe something in addition to that, i.e. a press release that are going to talk about it, and encouraging citizens to come. Is that something we can do?
I think we can work with the communications director and she can do some stuff on our social media, on our website. I believe she has emails to some of the neighborhood groups and they can also spread the word that way.
Yeah, yeah,
I have a question
Right.
for Kirsten. I'm seeing here, it says that there hasn't been a permit. Nobody's requested a permit since 2007. So do we have an idea, or do you have an idea of how many people have houses that right now kind of fall into this category, even though we haven't called them ADUs?
Co-housing thing.
Yeah.
So there are I know of at least 3 houses where it's probably set up where it's just a door in between, because you're allowed to have more than one kitchen in your house.
Mhm.
So people can design their house where there might be 2 doors, one on the side, one in the front. And you walk in, it's one dwelling unit, it looks like one dwelling unit from outside, but walk around and you can see there's like a whole nother little suite or house area attached to it, but there's doors and you can go in between the 2 units, so it's mostly for people who are using them for family members.
Okay.
You know, it's not so much a rental where you don't want them to provide access.
So more like an
those are the
in-law
ones
suite.
That are existing today.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can permit.
That we know of, right? So in other words, if somebody just built fix up their garage or whatever, and then
Yeah, no, if you came in and you wanted to add a new dwelling unit, like in your neighborhood, I think everyone here lives in an R1 district, you wouldn't get a permit to do that. If you're in the R2 district, you can build a 2-unit thing, or if you have a non-conforming 2-unit, you can agree to keep it that way. We have a fair amount of non-conforming 2-units.
okay. Would they also be grandfathered in some?
That's not.
Yeah. Okay.
And
That's what was my
just
question,
those
was
that
just
have-
the idea of, are people already sort of taking advantage of this? I mean, obviously we'd have to let them know. It's like, hey, you could now apply if you're interested in doing something like this, right?
But that number increases exponentially depending upon what
Yeah.
we adapt as being permissible.
Oh, yeah, no,
And then- and then-
clearly, yeah.
Then the number.
We have to
goes-
decide that first, yeah, sure.
Exactly, but
So I have a
Ms.
question.
Burzak.
As far as getting the word out, could the next commission meeting, because they always put all that in the newspaper, what was discussed, could they at least mention that we're going to have a workshop? And we do it during our whatever scheduled meeting,
Well, we-
December or January, and kind of try to get people here?
I
'Cause
guess I
I
would,
totally think
should,
it's a-
I think it's a good idea. I should ask, do we know of anything coming, kind of
I've already accepted one item.
what type of an
Text
item?
amendment Dealing with accessory structures and uses. We may have another,
Is that a citizen application?
it's a public, a residence application, business owner's application.
Right now,
Um,
that's the only thing on the December.
Well, that's been accepted. I also think I might end up with a PUD amendment out on Chapin Boulevard.
Mm.
You know, we've had a couple there. And then there might be a sign request for 32 square feet or more, but I don't.
What's the deadline on the December meeting?
Monday.
Would, if we plan this and go the route suggested by Ms. Burzak, an announcement of city meeting, then we're gonna get to the substance in a minute. Would our January meeting be better based on what you know might be coming? We'll lose some,
I think so, because I think there'll be some discussion in regards to the proposed text amendment our resident has submitted. They did work, but staff and I will make some more changes to the language he gave us. So hopefully that'll be pretty close to moving forward.
well, this can appear in the agenda. I'm just saying that which we might send out to the entire city as we
Yeah.
would like you
Yeah, I
to
would
come.
say, your January one might be hard because it's right after the holidays.
Right.
You might want to consider a special meeting later in the month.
Okay, and I'm perfectly all right with that, but we got 9 calendars here. We
The
want
only,
to
yeah.
arrive at a time when.
The only thing,
maximize our
if they
attendance.
want input back in 3 months and they assign this in October, the January puts us at a later
Well,
timeframe
we didn't
for.
get it for consideration to start
Till
until November.
November.
So that count for my starts in November. It doesn't start in October.
Okay,
So you think we should be, we should try for a special meeting in December or January?
I would say January.
Okay.
I think it's too hard in December.
All right, whatever's on December's agenda, let's make sure this, obviously we'll have it on the agenda and if nothing else, decide on a date when people have their calendars, because, we've got those, we don't want to do that and then have only 5 people available because we're going off date, which would be possible. All right, then thank you for that. Then to the substance, who wants to lead off? I'm sure everybody's got a lot of thoughts about it. Ms. Berzak, let's start with you then, please.
So I'm familiar with ADUs. My nephew, who I go to visit, lives in Portland, Oregon. They have several, and the success of them tends to be that in the communities, in these neighborhoods where they're located, there are no on-street parking restrictions whatsoever. So when I was reading all this stuff, I was trying to think about, the concerns of more impermeable surfaces, more congestion in certain areas where congestion is always already a major issue. Is missing middle housing to serve temporary people that want to come and have a place other than a, hotel to stay in. And so all these things started circling in my head. I'm not opposed to them, but I did like seeing, and thank you for, this was a lot to read, but it was very useful and beneficial information. Looking through, many of them restricted the usage to relatives, no rent, no this, no that. I don't know if that serves the purpose of what our commission is looking for. I would say no. However, if the purpose of this is really to provide that middle housing that's missing, what we need to be very cautious of and concerned with is that although you cannot have weekly rentals, there is no limit to 30-day. And in where I live, which this summer was a nightmare because everyone 600 and some cars that left the beach drove past your house to exit, because the only way out from the beach was to go up the Park Street Bridge. So 600 and some cars, when it stormed and they all left at once, were trying to go up the Park Street Bridge. Do we really need more residential down there if it's not serving middle housing, if it's serving 30-day rentals that
I did-
people use all the time?
I
So-
did note one of the proposed ordinance from one of the, I was
They-
particularly
yep.
impressed with Royal Oak and some
Yep.
other thing. I thought the Royal Oak
Yeah, they said
good.
longer than 30.
more than 30 days.
Yeah, because the 30, and I would like to ask council, is it a true statement that, can you in essence, in this situation, if 30-day is allowed to be like a monthly rental that you have no control over and they do it all the time? Can you in essence limit ADUs to not being allowed to have 30-day rental? Or where does that law fall into effect? Why is it that weekly rentals can't be weekly rentals, but a lot of people where I live are doing 1 week a month and they call it 30-day?
Mm.
So just asking.
Some people are, they're using, the ordinance in the way that it was designed.
Okay.
It's sort of enforced.
So is that, so if we,
Are you asking, can we regulate the length of time that they can be
yeah,
rented?
are we
for?
allowed to regulate it so we can basically say it has to be a period of 6 months or
Yeah,
greater?
I
Because
would-
then that would like take out the April to, September kind of, and most people go away in August, not September. That's what my head's just going with.
Well,
Yeah,
if it-
plus I think the whole goal of this, right, is
Was to
affordable
have-
housing, long-term for
Right.
people who can't
Year-round,
afford.
Yeah.
preferably year-round
that's-
Yeah,
residents.
it's not for tourists or somebody who's gonna spend summer.
But wouldn't you, if you could put one
Yeah,
on your, and you could
absolutely.
get 3,000 a week or
Yeah.
so, and you could add this right over your garage?
I think one of
and-
them even
you
said
doing?
for temporary, somebody moving into the area who wants to, for 30, I mean, that was one example of one of them.
Yeah.
That in that case that, it would, somebody 30 days might want to bring their
Several of them,
family
though,
and
they
have a,
flat out ban short-term rentals.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
yes.
home occupations, which I
Right.
caught it from Royal Oak, which I think is a
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, there were a lot of
possible
good things
restrictions.
in here. It was a nice diverse, some,
Yeah.
you know, were way more lenient than others. And some pretty much said no rent, no this, no that. So that's what I'm wondering. Can you actually make an ADU where you put a limited time frame on rental of 6 months or whatever we determine to eliminate the short-term use that is 30 days?
The starting point is to determine what your goals are.
Mhm.
And if the goal is housing, for permanent residents, that's a different goal than having this, other types of, accommodations. So I think
Right.
the starting point is look at what your goals are. And you can enact reasonable regulations that would meet those goals.
Okay.
And you have to craft that. I mean, I can't say right now, yes or no, because you
Okay.
have to look at what you're trying to do and what goals you're trying to accomplish.
you have to justify it.
But when discussed at the city commission level,
Yeah.
was it coming out as another way to have short-term rentals in all neighborhoods? Or for year-round, long-term residents to increase density and keep people here,
Okay.
if there was
It for
context?
housing.
Okay.
Okay.
Workforce, something, whatever, or people that need to have family members live with them.
Okay.
It was not short-term rental, was not
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have to be very cognitive, however we craft this, that we are well aware of that if you can build it and use it for that, so we've got to be very limiting,
I
like
think
you
just
said,
ban
people are,
short-term rentals under the meaning of your ordinance. Other
Yeah.
of these, they just flat out say it. Cannot be
Yeah.
used for short-term rental, period.
but if you say
Or home occupations, which I. never
30
thought about.
days, like I said, if you say, 30 days is not considered short-term rental, but that's the rule, and,
Well, it
they're
would be as-
doing a
as
lot of,
our- Unless we do differently, we have a definition of short-term rental already in our ordinance.
but isn't there a clause, because a lot of people are doing the 30-day, and they rent
So,
it,
What the ordinance requires, and people rent it for the month, but somebody may only be there a week.
Mhm.
And that's how they're trying to kind of get around it, but it's not.
Do they fill the other weeks or they take 1 week and they can't do that? So they're,
Yeah, well,
People
it,
choose to only be there one
How
week.
much-
they choose to only be there 1 week, so.
Yeah.
Well, we could address that though.
yeah, so I think that's important because, I mean, I'm not gonna go on a limb and say people are abusing that, but, it's something that we have to be very cognitive when we set this up, because if that's truly the goal, is to have middle housing that's missing and permanent residents, there's certain areas of the city that, you talk about walkability and that they want to be in places, so the prime place they're gonna wanna be is South State, down the hill, Ridgeway, a few areas like that, and some of those areas might already be at capacity in terms of,
Let's just
You know.
informally to that point, nobody's gonna held to this. Okay, because we'll have conversations and people change their minds and that's okay. Initially, upon your review, was there any consensus on not feeling this is appropriate or feeling it's appropriate for a short-term rental? Was there someone here that feels they should be available for short-term rental?
No,
no.
I do not think so.
All right, that's pretty good consensus. So point one, tell the city commission we're making progress. I'm not saying we can't be convinced otherwise,
Yeah.
but that was my initial
The purpose of
response.
this isn't
Would
to
take
do
a lot
that,
to
it's
convince
to
me.
create
mean-
more short-term rental.
All right, and what about home occupations?
I don't, what does that mean?
Well, we have a home occupation ordinance. You can set up a seamstress can do work.
Oh, a business.
Business,
Home
yeah,
oc-
home
oh.
occupation.
Where
Oh.
people come in.
Hold on.
Not
So
occupy.
most-
Where
most
you-
times, like you probably have a home occupation, but people don't come visit you. So if people are coming on a regular, like a hair salon, hairdresser.
I got it.
You
That
need
kind of
a
thing.
special permit. So I think that some of the intent of some of those draft languages say you can't build an accessory dwelling unit and then add this to
Make
it.
it your business.
because it's
Make it
not-
your business.
Blacksmith.
Okay, understood.
Blacksmith.
Understood.
Farrier, please.
Yeah.
Farrier, please.
Yeah, truly that if the purpose is for housing, it's not,
Exactly.
we have plenty of business offices for
Commercial
rent
space,
that
yeah.
people can rent versus putting something on your house that then now you're causing more
I'm just-
neighborhood.
I'm just throwing stuff out here for discussion.
I-
Go ahead.
I have a suggestion. Rather, to me, there's like, from what I can see, 10 to 15 things that need to be determined.
Mhm.
Ballpark, yeah.
Would it be, is there a framework that we can use and have those space for that so we can make a decision as to the maximum occupancy? So rather than just throwing out ideas, maybe we come up with this list. These are the things that we have to have an agreement on.
So part of the occupancy is gonna be based on the building code.
Yeah.
So, but there were some communities that had a maximum occupancy.
Of
Yeah.
4
in
or
the
3
building
or
on the
2.
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
But those are things we need, those are all common. So it would be, I think, helpful for me is to just, let's determine what those things are. And let's,
I think the city wants us to do that.
So.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
what we're
They want us to
doing
make
by
those.
talking through it.
I've got, I mean, what I can,
I did the same, I
Okay.
did the
Yeah.
same thing, you know, occupancy is one, we have standalone attached above. Or all of the above, none of the above, 2 of the above, 3, there's a decision,
Yeah.
okay? Do we want standalones? Do we want, want to limit? There's height, there's lot coverage,
Mhm.
how should it impact, if at all, lot coverage and, I mean, those are all, and of
Right.
course, the one the city the one the city sent to us, parking.
Or the number,
Yeah,
you
parking.
know, you're allowed 1 ADU.
Yeah, I thought the consensus on most of these was one.
One, yes.
My reaction was, that's enough, but then
Yeah.
again, that's open for discussion. If people think, yeah, I would think of your neighbor. That's why I want the neighborhoods represented. Think of somebody trying to do 2 on Pearl, on, you know, and some, on a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow on Willa. Okay, with our lots and I mean, you have to, that's why I'm very interested in having representation from all across the
Mhm.
city to realistically, all know what those houses are, what the lot sizes are, or look like.
Right.
How does that play there? What do the folks that
Mm.
would be living there feel about
Mhm.
some of these issues? You're right. I went to say occupancy,
Yeah.
lot splitting. No.
Location, front, back,
Yeah,
side.
Yeah.
all of the,
sign.
we're.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, those are the things I think
I-
the city's looking for
yeah,
some guidance on.
like, To me, there was one in particular that said, you know, the lot frontage. Now, that one large guide talked about reducing lot frontage and all that, but to me, you know, if you want to have I mean, basically down the hill, let's just face it, you don't count 6 inches or lower. So 33-foot by 100-foot lots pretty much are all impermeable right now because we're building right to the maximum setback lines and asking the ZBA at times to go closer to the maximum setback lines that are allowed. So, you know, when you look at it from a standpoint of maybe it's not lot coverage, they don't count it as a percentage, but you still have solid pavement in a large percentage of every lot. And the first thing that the concern to me is, you know, are we going to start impacting flooding and can the sanitary or the storm system, you know, for the city handle all this additional runoff because more and more pavement would be needed if it's not a stand above, but you know, if you build it above a garage, you're not changing that, but you're changing the footprint and the coverage and making things more impermeable as soon as it's a standalone or built in a location that there was nothing before. So that to me is like, I don't know how the city engineer feels about all that. Do we really have unlimited capacity in our storm system that we can take on all of this?
We'll get
So there are a
that
lot of
information.
things like that that I think all have to be thought about and
Chris, in council, how would this, let's assume, we're just spitballing here, as we used to say. I have a standalone and it's okay. How is that taxed? How does that, if they're not, no lots, I tend to be a no lot split for this purpose, kind of purpose here, kind of gal here, but, how is the taxing done?
I don't know. We'd have to get the city assessor to.
yeah.
provide some
I
information. can get
would-
that for
And
you.
how are the utilities metered? Because it said, a lot of them said no separate meters. So then I'm like, how does that work? Do you just charge people more rent and you pay for the AC or?
So I did ask about you. So one of the things that some of those examples said must be on a foundation. So the building and the inspection department did find in the building code where it says it'd have to be a foundation.
Mhm.
Regarding the utilities, I did talk briefly with the deputy public works director in charge of utility stuff, and it would be his preference to keep it one meter or one line for everything on the property.
That's pretty
But he
consistent.
also- he
Yeah.
also brought up a different aspect of it, and he said, but no, a lot of the houses, because they're older and the different companies that were in the area at one time, a lot of houses only have a half-inch water line in them.
Mm.
So your water flow might be more difficult, but that's something that, you know, if you're gonna build one of these, you would need to address that. But that's not something, you know, for the ordinance, but that would be something to think about
Well,
also.
is it, I'll do it from a marketing point of view, if that's the case. All right, again, I'm the dumb homeowner that thought this was a really good idea, so I'm gonna build this in my backyard and I had that water issue. Okay? Who does, that? Am I responsible to put that water in and I pay for it? Okay, city will have nothing to do with it. So my guess would be in many situations, that's going to knock them out of the marketability of doing this. I mean, are we talking, I would assume thousands of dollars? Yeah, answer. Okay. Well, again, we don't have a lot of these, 3 since 2007, so, you know,
Yeah.
we're gathering information.
We don't have many 60 amp services anymore. But if you add, you know, another kitchen and bathroom,
Mhm.
of course, you know, you might be looking at a new service underground, put in maybe out to the. Certainly the building code and permits would be quite.
Yeah, what? Okay.
When you were asking about the taxes.
Yeah.
Were you just asking, I mean, that still would be one parcel, so the tax wouldn't go to the property owner. Whether they rent out the ADU or have a relative there, and it may.
So even if it's a separate
Yes.
on the one lot, so I would assume they would be reassessed and it would be reflected
Yeah.
in, okay,
Okay.
okay.
It seems to me too that if you said, you know, you can't have separate utilities, that really, does a lot of limiting. I mean, I've seen houses around residents here that are grandfathered in that have 4 boxes on there, you know, there's ups and downs. So, I mean, it really kind of changes, I think it's a little more intimate. It's a little more likely to be a relative or somebody, you know, I mean, because you're paying the utility bill for with this person, you know, and you have to work that part out too, so.
I mean,
Another thought that I was I'm just trying to get as many of these general concepts out and we can go anywhere anybody wants to go. What I thought was kind of interesting, there was difference between municipalities on whether this is permitted
Mhm.
largely and or special use.
use.
Um, and one had special use only for
Yeah.
height, which intrigued me a little bit, or should it be a special use period?
Mhm.
Or conditional use if you met all the conditions.
Mhm.
And at what point in time should that be carte blanche, all administrative in-house, or is there anything that should come to see us? I mean, that's out there for discussion. Just, we haven't even gotten to parking yet, but that, I just going down random routes.
Yeah.
Somebody else made you made a whole list, so you got another one on there you want to throw out for consensus and input?
We've been covering some of them and parking was one of them. Let's table that one.
Wait a minute, we're
What-
supposed to have creative solutions.
so
to
what
that. We
about-
do.
Never talk about
Oh, here we
parking.
go, here we
So
go.
here's, one of the cities had, I think I read it right, where it was temporary. So once that, and it was for somebody infirmed, and once they're no longer there, then what do you do with this
A
building?
couple of them had that rule. If the
Mhm.
unit wasn't used for a year, you had to
Ter-
get rid of it. Which
Yeah.
is probably one reason why people don't do this eco housing thing, because it also talks about eliminating the improvement. I think that'd be hard to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, if the whole goal though is to provide more housing,
Nothing temporary about.
there's
the
nothing
concept.
temporary
Right.
about it. I get it that you don't want to put a storage, you know, a back of a semi in your yard and use it as a unit, but
Shipping
You were
container.
gonna
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah, I was
parking, or at least that's when
Shipping
you, oh, please, share.
Parking potentially is a concern. if the city really wants to push this, let's push back on the city commission. We don't allow overnight parking on the streets.
Right. So-
If we did, that eliminates all of Kathy's concerns about additional lot coverage.
Except unless you build a freestanding.
The general code of ordinances requires no parking overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in the day when we used to have our own street sweeper.
Yep.
That street sweeper went around
It's true.
every night it was in some neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
That no longer happens.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, there used to be snow plows on the street before the snow started flying.
Yep.
And the streets were never snow covered because the plows were out all the time.
Yep.
We don't start plowing snow unless it's a huge event, second shift anymore. So why on earth are we still not allowing overnight parking? If the city commission is really into this,
They are.
let's eliminate the
Mhm.
overnight parking and allow these additional folks to park on the street.
Get your
Because
car
beyond-
started.
I mentioned it won't like that on State Street, right near your town where, you know, where all the big old houses are. They would be, I'm just saying those people.
But some of the other lots, if they want, are allowed to do, you require them to pave some form of parking on site.
Yes.
Well,
on
you
site.
wouldn't, I mean,
You've got,
I'll
Yeah.
use my house as an example. If I put in an ADU, I've got 2 slots in the garage that account for my house. I've got 2 slots in my driveway that would account for my ADU.
Yep.
Everybody's got the blinders on. I've also got 2 kids that each have a car.
Yes.
So when they're home,
Yeah,
I have a legal ADU. I have now
6 cars.
5 cars, 6 cars, who knows how many cars? I'm all legal, but I still have to park that car, my car
Yeah.
somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I was saying to start, at the start of the meeting that, you know, they allow overnight on-street parking in Portland and that, because it's the same situation there, the lot sizes are very small in some of these more older historic neighborhoods and all tree lined and there's not a lot of room. And so they put these little narrow, tall ADUs in and people park on the street, you know?
I used to live in Portland. They
So you
also,
kn-
yeah.
Yeah, it's a new thing. It's been in the,
Yeah,
I mean,
they
they're all over
also
the place.
allow you to protest naked.
What?
You're allowed to protest naked as long, by city ordinance, as long as you
Good to
are
know.
for a specific cause. But I know Portland is
well, it is
very,
Portland.
Yeah,
I mean, no, I live there and I love living there. And
Yeah.
you know, they were dealing with a lot of these.
yeah,
things.
and his neighborhood is more of one that's more traditional and
Yeah.
historic and everything. And
Yeah.
when I would go for walks, I mean, I would see them going up and they're long and skinny and,
Yeah,
you know, every nook and cranny because there's a big need for it. So I'm not opposed to it, but I have lots of reservation about certain areas being over capacity right now currently. And that the additional generated traffic and everything else will be a further burden. So that's why I agree, we should get all the neighbors in from every neighborhood because maybe people don't feel
yeah,
the
you're gonna
same
have
way.
some neighborhoods that say, oh, it's probably a good idea. And then other ones that are gonna say absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I
I
don't know
mean,
how we
I'm
do.
just in my head trying to think, again, all of you, you've all been down Willa Thayer and Morton,
Yeah.
those, there must be 30 houses on each side of those streets. Small 2 to 3 bedroom, 1 or
Yep.
2 bath bungalow, money bungalow
Right.
type. Lots are very consistent. Y'all know that type of neighborhood.
Yeah.
And just imagine if everybody or a majority of folks chose to do this.
Yeah,
If that's what that neighbor thinking about neighborhood wants to do, that I want to know that if they're willing to live with that,
yeah,
have that. I just think you have to think about it. It's different than if you have the larger homes, perhaps up by the high school in some of those neighborhoods, where that standalone unit could be far back in the back and we've got our setback and you really don't see it from the road and your neighbors have great green space. I mean, it really is, it will impact everybody. See, that's why I
Yeah.
look for that input from, so everybody understands.
I view it as that's the city commission's job. If they're
And yet they
if they're
made it
gonna
ours.
Right, I mean, it's ours to come up with a policy and propose that to them. it's their responsibility to vet it with the community and get that input and get that buy-in from their constituents.
Well, I'm all right with that too. if the
That
city
it's their
commission wants to do it.
constituents, not ours. We're appointed.
But I think we do want to know
Yeah.
how the community feels. I mean, to get ideas from them. There might be, I mean, we're looking at other communities' ideas and what they decided to restrict, so.
And that's
mean-
interesting. I was gonna ask Kristen, we got all the good news stuff here because that was the bent of the city committee. Where the city said, because one of the materials made it clear that these are not very widespread in the state of Michigan yet.
Mhm.
I'd be interested to know if you can Google the positive, you can Google the negative. Where are communities where this has been an issue and they've been rejected and what were the concerns? That were raised? I get in principle with what Mr. Ebert is saying, you know, we've been given a charge. And I'm okay with having it, you're probably technically correct, but I'm fine with still asking for input at this level to help us make good decisions. I mean, I don't really have a major problem with that, but I'd like to know where else this has been, if this has been an issue elsewhere, where maybe the result was different, and if so, why?
I can
Trudy's got her,
work
what,
on some research.
you
Well,
found a community that
did the
said no?
research since 2017, just for my instance, we kept track of home conversions from multi-family to single family. The older homes that were like 2 units that
Mhm.
went to.
Yeah.
single or 3 units that
Right.
went to single. And I also just kept track of how many, you know. But there were 23 conversions since 2017.
Mhm.
Now, that might not seem like a lot, but most of them are the older ones that were.
Are you talking about here?
Here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was very much a big push in the 2010s.
Yep.
Was to, that, and we saw that all the
Yeah.
time here, was to push to go from apartments to single family
Yeah,
residents.
get rid of those non-conforming 2 units in single-family residential.
Exactly, and there were a lot of them.
And, it's always seemed like we wanted more conformity and people wanted, bigger, you know, living space.
Yeah.
You know, that you know, it's like we were talking with Emily about this before the meeting, like, you know, you want your son and your daughter close or your family close, but not living with.
Separate entrance.
The other thing, I want to get a clarification on, we'll come back to some of the meat, because I think this is important. This is kind of one of those for the record moment things. Because if we do get the kind of citizen response that I'm actively seeking input, what I suspect we're going to hear, we've already kind of heard it, is again and again and again, we're going to hear about this cornerstone recommendation. About, we're supposed to have, what is it, 900? Okay, here's the thing, I want to be very clear, make sure I'm clear about something. We are not required to do that, yes or no? It is not mandated. Okay. If we get 800 and not 900, what happens bad to the city? Nothing. Okay. It's a guideline and recommendation. Am I right on that? You're
Mhm.
gonna have that presented to you. We've already seen it in one of our prior matters. That Cornerstone, whatever, says we have to have 900 within 5 years. No, we don't. It's a good idea. I'm not saying it's heavily recommended and supported. I'm not suggesting it's not. But it may start getting presented that if we don't get 900 done in whatever way possible, you know, the apocalypse is upon us, and that's not the case. And I want to be mindful that when that number's you're gonna hear, it's gonna get tossed around. And if we can find, and if we can't find, I don't think that's a reason to lower our change our process and not be as studious about looking at this as even as others might be. Because I'll be honest with you, I had no appetite for this myself. I really don't want to put one in my house. I have a lot and a half. I've got enough room to do it somehow. Don't go measure, Trudy, because I'm probably lying, but I think I could do one. I have absolutely no appetite myself to do it. I'm not sure I'd be real thrilled if my neighbors did, but you know, this is America, it's your property. But the city's made it clear they are heading in that direction, at least want our input. And I appreciate that. So I just think there's a lot of things hear that that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, was get a lot of these concerns out and give you the time and tools, but most important for me is going to, with respect to Mr. Everett's position, I would love to say toss it back to the city commission, but they tossed it to us, so I can't ignore that. I really am really interested in everything possible to get as much, and it doesn't even, if it's not in person, input from all the neighbors in the city about this. Whatever we can put of these materials online, put them on and let people see what we're seeing in trying to make this decision, because it would be, quite frankly, a pretty big change. This is a pretty big potential change
Yeah.
to how the neighborhoods in this city look. Chris,
Not to add more to your research plate, but some of
That
these,
time.
some of these communities that you brought up, some of their guidelines and ordinances, would it be possible, like within the last 5 years, how prevalent were these in these communities?
From
Like,
what I've heard at different things I've attended, there was one community in the Upper Peninsula where they did it, and it took a couple years before someone finally did it.
In Marquette, was that Marquette up there?
No,
I've
it was
read-
Nagani,
all right.
not Nagani, it was whatever's next, to
Mm.
Marquette going west.
Mm.
Mm.
how
where
often
it's
is our
not-
phone
and-
ringing here about questions about doing this?
You would
I mean,
think,
knowing
yeah.
that we
If
don't
there was a
allow 'em right
market
now.
for it, you'd think you,
Are you getting calls? Do we routinely get calls?
Some calls for people wanting to do something about the
garage.
Yeah.
Is that the most prevalent request, is above the garage?
Yeah, but can I have living space there?
Mhm.
Or. It may not be a dwelling unit, it's living space maybe for them.
Yeah,
They want to convert it to office space, or they want an extra bedroom or something. I'd say most people who call, I don't think they've fully extended in the ones I've talked to for the extra dwelling unit have said, oh, I want to add on to the second floor. I know of one who said they even had plans drawn up, and I'm like, well, we got a couple issues, we got a couple things to.
But not as an expansion of their home, but as a separate dwelling unit.
Well, I would say, I don't know, I think if it was an option, that gets back to your utilities and how you move those around, and how your parcel is. Some parcels might be very easy to add an accessory dwelling unit that's attached to the house that no one even notices.
mhm.
Some might just want the detached house because they don't want it. I can get something that, I think you could get both. But with the accessory garage, how tall what is your height you're looking at?
So height becomes one of the things we would be looking at monitoring if we went that direction to allow it.
And
What
the
about-
dwelling unit, remember, it has to have, a kitchen and a bath. You have to be able to clean yourself, cook your food.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what the building code considers dwelling.
Another thing I thought was interesting, trying to get as many opinions on I'm sorry, Chris, were you finished? You had other things?
Well, reason for that question is I think there's a barrier to entry on this thing that's pretty prevalent and pretty high. So that's why I'm interested in what other communities have experienced
What do you mean
thus far.
by barrier to entry?
You gotta hook up water, sewer, electric, I mean, it's not just you're setting down a shed in your backyard and you're good to go. There's a lot of nuance and a lot of infrastructure work that needs to take place before that. So I'd be curious to see how many folks would be readily knocking on Trudy's door, trying to get this done straight away. I'm guessing it's not gonna be as many as we may think.
What did you think about the fact that, I can't remember which, if it was Royal Oak or Holland, what do you think about the design regulations? We don't often get into the aesthetics.
Mhm.
There were a couple of those ordinances that regulated it. I mean, it has to look like
Look
the
your
structure it's
house.
standing next to.
fit into the neighborhood kind of thing.
Yeah, or the primary structure.
Yeah.
Well, if we, allow a garage. We allow a garage and an alley, 1 foot off the alley.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you convert your garage to accessory dwelling, then you need to look at that.
Yeah,
Well, what about a standalone? Do you want an Egyptian temple design in the back of your lot when you are a colonial house in the front?
Mhm.
The neighborhood, I live in Niles, the neighborhood I live in is very similar to Veronica and those streets in there, mostly ranches. And my neighborhood was built from the twenties to the sixties. And there are accessory dwelling units and they're all attached. Some of them are behind, like I would have never known it was there. Other ones, like they're more, one's on a corner lot and the front door faces one street and this other little side door where the garage is to get into the mother-in-law suite, you know, and however she gets in the house, I think she can get into the house. But you don't really notice it until you really start looking at it because the design was good.
Mhm.
What's the Niles ordinance look like? They obviously must have one.
Well, again, these homes were built, you know, in the sixties. So I can go and look. I know they got a new zoning ordinance recently, and I can pull that up and see if they have any rules on it.
Kristen, if you convert your attic, let's say, do you have to have a separate entrance to the outside? How does that work on this?
Oh, for if you convert your attic to a separate dwelling unit?
Yeah,
Well, I think that accessory dwelling unit that we're talking about is a separate structure. Am I?
No.
no, these
No.
are
No.
attics or,
Basement conversion,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
addition on the house.
Mhm.
yeah, you would have to have a separate,
Why?
okay.
If my son moves back home after Hope College and I want him to have a separate place within my house, why can't he come through my house? He's got his own kitchen and bathroom upstairs.
Yeah, that's just not even an ADU. That's just,
that's your son.
that's
Just bad
just.
luck.
Okay.
I like that word.
it's tuition down the
Come on,
drain.
he's going to Hope. He's gonna be fine.
Bad luck.
Now you've got,
Yeah, but that's the distinction we were trying to make earlier, and pardon my ignorance. There's a difference between remodeling your home
Yeah.
to allow extra space
Yeah,
for those
for
types of
relative.
versus an ADU.
Yeah,
And we need to be clear. If some of that stuff you can do right now
Right.
and never call City Hall other than to get your
Right.
basic building permits. So
Yeah.
that was the one thing about all of this that kind of confused me was the ones that are attached or within the structure that are not a structure. How is that
That's
different?
a good
What
point,
makes that different? What makes that an ADU as a basic, besides,
Houses that we had, you know, that were separate, you know, the upstairs.
Yeah.
one,
there was one right across
Yeah.
the alley from, yeah,
Okay, and that's what I'm talking about. We had a lot convert back.
right,
Okay,
yeah.
So we would be going the other.
right.
So that.
Well, what's the difference
But-
between a duplex and an ADU then?
Yeah.
You're saying my ADU can be connected to my house.
It can be attached to your house, but if you
Right.
were doing a rental, would you want whoever you?
But that's,
rented to
but
walk
that's
through
a,
your house?
but that's a that's a
If I'm getting
marketing
enough rent.
argument.
Well, then it's a
And what they
boarding
look
house.
like.
I mean, then if they're going through your living space to get upstairs to their space, that in my mind is not an ADU. An ADU is a separate dwelling.
Well, it is, I guess that's what I'm saying, it is if we say it is, but to Mr. Everett's point, that does not have to be an ADU to accomplish what he wants.
Right. We're talking like a duplex, whether this way, whatever. They have private entrances.
Yes.
If it be, you share an entrance and then there's a flight of stairs going to the second floor, or there's, you know, a little vestibule and there's door here and a door here, there's separate entrances. They're separate housekeeping units.
We already allow duplexes, in multi-family homes in the city. So if we're talking about ADUs, I'm thinking we're talking about separate dwelling units. We already allow duplexes.
Well, we can.
But not in
be,
R1.
But
Not
not in
R1.
R1.
You're talking about allowing ADUs in R1 where it's single family only.
Or.
Now
That's-
we want an exception.
That's what the city commission told us to do.
Okay.
And it can be also in the R2, because R2 requires them to be attached.
Yeah.
I have a question. Our ordinance went into effect in 2007. It's my recollection that we have to review our ordinance every 10 years. It gets reviewed every 5 years, and every 10 years you have to do something else.
Total, that's the master plan. So there was money budgeted to do refresh, overhaul, whatever, of the zoning ordinance. Because it does have some issues. Because we've done a lot of amendments, but we haven't gotten, we would be hiring a consultant to do that work.
From tonight's discussion, I'm seeing that we're gonna do a whole lot of brain damage, and how soon are we going to have this overhaul of the ordinance anyway?
Has that money been budgeted?
It was budgeted as part of the CIP over 2 years, some money for this fiscal year, so it could start in March or whenever, and then for the following fiscal year, 26 to 27 also. So if it
Well, to
doesn't
Mr.
get
Everett's-
going in this fiscal year, then the money will most likely extend out to the next year.
Well, to-
Assuming it's.
Well,
gonna
to
be
his
like-
point is there's some logic to that. I mean, are we gonna go through 4 to 6 month process only to have a consultant come in and recommend that we've just gone the absolute wrong direction?
There's a lot of things in your current zoning ordinance and anything we do before you get to the final. Once a consultant's hired, there's things that are still gonna move over. You're not
Yeah.
gonna throw away the whole document.
No, I agree.
You know, so
I know, I went through the
Say
one
you
in
would-
2007. I get it. I mean, I understand, but it is a massive project. I didn't realize the budgeting had occurred. I knew that was being discussed, but that sounds like it's coming.
There's been no RFP sent out or anything. We're still trying to draft that out. It's been a busy couple of months.
Who else has a topic they want to throw out there that I read this material and I was struck by? Go.
I read this material and I was struck by the idea that this is just one small element that can help a housing crisis or a housing problem. It's not the end all be all. It's not a big thing. And in fact, in a lot of the places that we're talking about, it seemed like they were talking about a really, really limited number. So, I mean, getting back to the city council and having them under commission and understand that, okay, if we were to do any of this, it's really not going to have any kind of huge impact. It's going to be pretty small. It probably, there's some damage that could happen. I mean, there could be some people that really don't like it, but at the end of the day, does anybody visualize, dozens and dozens or hundreds of people coming in and applying for permits and saying, I want to do this?
Down by the beach, if they can do weekly rental.
I don't know. It's new. That's why I hearing from some of the other communities where it was not such a great idea or except it would be interesting. And there is always, as there has been forever, just because I was, been here long enough, there is always the risk about that there will be short-term rental type usage. of
Sure,
this.
some sort of, yeah.
It's happened for years here before we had them, before we banned them, before we brought them back. There have been, and that is largely and it is very hard to enforce that. I don't even want to hear those folks. They got stories to tell about how many calls we get about people we were doing illegal short-term rentals for decades here.
Mhm.
And when anybody showed up, it was their cousin, it was their uncle, it was always family, and it wasn't. And everybody knew that, but that is, that's always in the back.
Mhm.
And again, I want to make sure that one of the reasons I want to hear from every neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, it's understandable to Ms. Bursak's earlier point that if you were gonna try and get a rental in someplace, well, the closer you get to the water, the more attractive that gets and the more money you get. We know that.
Mhm.
But how do you feel but let's be honest, we're not that big. You can still walk to the beach from South State Street. You stand on somebody's garage and look this way, you can see the lake. I mean, there will be a market.
Right.
We are a walkable community. I walk down to the beach from my house on South State, so, it's doable. So I don't think it's just limited to below the bluff.
No,
Or at least I want to make sure that the whole city realizes it's not limited. Don't be aware that this could be on your street. You may want to do it yourself. So that's part of the reason I'm pushing.
So I would
very
say one of
hard
the
for it.
questions is, Andrew, is the squeeze worth the juice? In other words, I mean, is going through all this or doing this, and is it? I mean, that would be interesting. They're talking about a housing problem, is this going to help it at all?
Yeah.
Just a
Right,
little
because
bit or-
realistically, when you think about it, if we're not gonna change our lot coverage, if we're not gonna change our setbacks,
Mhm.
That was my question.
That-
So lot coverage is not gonna change?
Well.
Well, it
have to
depends what
decide
you
well,
that.
that's
pick.
up for us to decide.
It depends what we
I
decide.
recommend.
That's
But
why I'm worried about the,
And a
Okay.
lot of them, a
Impermeable
lot of these
surface.
examples have
If
that,
it
say
doesn't
that.
change,
Not too many are gonna
you
get
might
sold.
get a couple of these on select R1A, the larger lots?
Yep.
How many of these are you gonna get in an R1E, the
Yeah.
really tiny residential lots?
You're not,
If you allow
Without
them,
changing our lot coverage and our setbacks.
yeah, above your garage.
Look at how many variances we get because somebody with an R1E lot wants a two-car garage.
yep.
We're already reducing their lot coverage. We're already pushing it closer to the property line.
Yep.
So there we come back to height.
So in follow-up to Mr. Plicka's comment, this is just the first part. There will be other discussions about other ways to handle housing. I think we'll eventually be expanding over, we'll get a request to expand the overlay district on Main Street to go farther south. But what Sean said, I had to do some research for a city commissioner and about lot coverage. And so I started doing it. And while our lot coverage percentages were good compared to a lot of other communities that I looked at, it was what you counted towards lot coverage is where the issue.
Yeah, so same with the
Was probably
16.
where the issue is that is our problem, that would be the ducks.
Well, certainly, I would think a standalone structure would have to count to lot coverage
Yeah,
and parking, I would assume,
Nope.
on site.
no, nothing below 6 inches counts toward lot coverage. So that's why I was saying the lots down below the hill, a lot of them, if you look up from airplane view down, everything's paved
Yeah.
or covered in something. So that's about the impermeable surface because you only count 6 inch or higher.
All right, let me take one brief moment to say, we do have guests. Boy, you are strong of backbone. This is not a technical public hearing, okay, but we are always open. If you're here just because you're interested, Graham, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but we certainly, if you have anything you want to share with us, or we take public comment because it's a public meeting, so I didn't want to leave you out of the mix and think you were there waiting for me to look for citizens to, do either one of you, or you just happy observing?
Just think live in a single family, predominantly housing.
Do you mind sharing what part of the town?
Over the high school.
Okay, know exactly where you live.
Lots and all that other stuff, but I don't think, based on some of the past city commissions, they don't really include all the neighborhoods. And I think you're gonna get a lot of pushback if they push it through and don't communicate with the neighborhood.
So you agree with our position, we should get this word out?
You probably should send a survey out saying who approves and who wants. this.
Survey.
That's a good
And
idea.
they've done it with parks.
Yeah.
So why they wouldn't do it with a massive change? This would be a huge change to the city.
Thank
Mhm.
you. I agree. Are you part of I'm just down the street. I'm very familiar with your neighborhood. Are you part of, are you a homeowner? Do you have a homeowners, neighborhood association of any kind in your area, or just lots of friends?
For the Dickinson Park thing, we're a little
Oh, yeah.
in tune with, changes that go on in the area. So,
Okay.
and
Get the
myself,
word out.
I emailed one of the commissioners and they were just, oh, we think it's a great idea to turn a shed in your backyard and your garage into an ADU. And I was like, that just sounds like a terrible idea. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine if you go in your backyard and there's a 2-unit apartment right there in your backyard, in the neighbor's backyard, how you're gonna feel about that, what's gonna do to your property.
Mhm.
So.
As I start, go ahead.
It's not just that, I believe there'll be people that are gonna take advantage of the situation, are the ones that don't live in the city. They have a house that they own, but they don't live there.
Yeah.
Somebody lives
One
in
of the
their house.
one of the things I liked about one of these ordinances, just so you know, did you get a chance to look at the packet's not on? A lot of them have requirements that the owner of the property has
Yep,
to
live
live
there.
there.
Mhm.
In order to have that, and I meant to, I think I
Yep.
wrote that down here, owner
Yep.
occupancy. But
Right.
That's the same as the 30-day.
the lights better be on, and the car better be in the garage.
Those are the people that are going to, it's not gonna
They'll-
be the ones
Yep.
that live in the city.
There will be
I
a
know
percentage
people that
that you're
live in
probably
the
right.
city want.
Yep.
I do believe people who wanna make a little money,
Mhm.
more money, will do.
And that's why we're not wrong, we don't have a problem with people making money, I'm all
Well,
for,
I-
and the
I don't
highest best
either,
use in your
but
property.
I don't want it to be in my backyard.
Well,
Mhm.
Perfectly honest.
no,
If they added something above their garage or above their house and then a separate unit, That I could even wrap my head around somewhat.
Well, how long have you've been in town? You been here a while?
No.
Okay, all right. You remember Dottie Chapeau on Nels, that Pink House, the dress store? She's got a beautiful apartment over that garage. It's been there it was there for decades. Separate. It was her garage to the shop, which was at one time a house, but she turned it into the dress shop. And then if you go down bottom there, you'll see it. And that above her garage was rented and occupied for decades. As long as that shop was open, there was somebody living above that. Never, and I'm in that neighborhood, never an issue, never a problem, well maintained, had no issue with that whatsoever. So there have been examples where it's worked well, and there was no mother-in-law, it was a flat out rental unit, wasn't an employee of the store that worked there. But it worked very well. Not burdensome in the least, had its own drive, had its garage, and that applied. So it can work, but I tend to agree with you. I want to just make sure that the word gets out, what we're talking about, and we get the input from all across the city. Your neighborhood, everybody's neighborhood, so.
We appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Court Street?
Yes, and I've been part of some of the housing webinars that has been going on this March, and the last one was in September. And the kind of the theme about missing middle is changing the business model. And that's what's been somewhat frustrating about those last two developments that were approved, is that, they're accommodating the elitists with a token amount for missing middle. But in all those webinars, the two themes that go along with missing middle is revamping the zoning ordinances, being more lenient with them. You have to pretty much recognize. And then secondly, make the permit and building code more accommodating. So building code policy. Those are the two things that are common in providing missing middle. Doesn't matter if ADU or anything else, whatever it is, you have to recognize that's going to happen in that part.
Well, yes, no, the only thing I would say in response, let's just remember, in a municipality, we're out of land. There aren't any gaping, wide open spaces here to develop. So everything St. Joe pretty much is gonna be doing going forward is redevelopment, not development. So, we live with the lot size, we live with what we have, and so, I mean, leaving aside Cedarwood, I always want to get Cedarwood in because someday something's coming in. Just wait, I don't know what it is, but something's coming. It's kind of a different mindset than that, because you deal within the structure that we have, and relaxing ordinances and all that. I mean, I understand where the city commissions make it kind of clear on what they do on some of these things, but I still think you need to take care. And I have no problem doing that to encourage viable development. I have no problem with that at all. If this is what the citizens want to do, then we go that direction, but there's nothing wrong with regulating reasonably. And then I guess you can have that argument about how far to go, how relaxed to get. We've always kind of taken the approach that, with some care. And I think the result is that St. Joe's turned out pretty well over the years. And I don't have the problem with that. Some other people do, and I freely acknowledge other people do, but it might be one of those things, respectful minds just disagree on some things, but anything else you want to ask about, or I have a feeling we'll be talking about this on every agenda probably for the next 3 to 6 months is what I'm getting the impression. So tell your friends but we do really want input. We really, I'm sincere about that. That would be helpful.
So yeah, like you said, the survey like we did for the park.
Is that doable, Council?
I think so. I think we can.
be sure and explain, yeah, they will. I mean, let's get it in a nice, user-friendly. I had to learn what ADU was, let's make sure people, seriously, if you want meaningful response,
Yeah,
and believe me, I've learned through the years here, drafting a survey that gets you results is a skill.
yeah.
That is a real skill, and I'll defer. Who else had something when they looked at everything that wanted to? It struck me that we should talk about,
I'm fully prepared to simply modify the standards of 11-12 and add ADUs to it. And I think we could draft that, or we could tweak that tonight, and staff could have us an ordinance for a public hearing next month.
well, look at you. I'm very impressed. That's an option.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say that with everything else going on, it's not happening for me. Time-wise, we could look at that as being put on, but not.
No, but conceptually, forget about deadlines right now. The city did give us at least 3 months. So kind of them.
Well,
And,
yeah.
and we're solving parking too while we're at,
The 3 months is not a deadline, it's just they wanna.
I know. It read a little more firm than that, but as an
Yeah,
option.
it worked me the wrong way.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to be nice. But as an option, is that something we can put on the table to talk about? Is there a way to do it that route rather than reinventing the wheel and accomplish
Well, what are you wanting to add it
our
to?
existing ordinance and just add a provision regarding ADUs?
Set that with my goal.
Yeah, that's certainly an area to put it, but there's still a lot of things that.
We still have to go over a lot of the areas
Yeah.
that we want to include.
Yeah,
There would still be some drafting involved.
I think we need to talk more about what we're all comfortable with, like width wise, a lot of the things about reducing widths and things. I already feel there's, there are some areas that could accommodate reducing the widths because they have lots of extra width to work with. But I liked when they had sizes of the ADUs, 600 to 800 square feet. They don't need to be any bigger than that. I like that because then you're not getting, but who does that serve? It might serve someone that, a single person that could live in a studio apartment, because really that's 24 by 24, 600 feet roughly, size of a top of a garage. So I think we have a lot more, I'm not comfortable drafting something up tonight because there are a lot of things that I feel we would want to limit so that we don't end up with people going around the ordinance like they do now. And everyone says, well, it comes down to enforcement, but you have limited staff to do enforcement. Staff that's always doing everything else and, overworked, and then they got to take that on too, because let's face it, people are gonna get away with whatever they can if they can get away with whatever they can, and if it makes them money. So I'm not comfortable drafting it up tonight because there are lots of things that, after reading all these, that I feel we should be looking toward including, just so it limits some of the areas where they can just be placed. But I also think that maybe, if no one else agrees with me, and once we have the neighborhood and everyone says we love them, we want them in our backyard and we want them in our side yards and we want them in our basements and our attics and everywhere else, then
Then we do the work.
I'm a minority and I'll shut up.
And we do the work.
So,
I mean, if the
yeah.
city folks tell us.
Yeah.
We want to go in this direction. I think we do the hard work clearly, and you should know, the
Yeah.
city commission, it's clear. As I said, I really didn't have a great appetite for this. I didn't feel it was a compelling need housing's a tough situation. I get that. And affordable housing, which nobody talks
Yeah.
about, but the affordable housing, it's an extremely tough situation here. Good problem to have, but it's still a problem. I get all of that.
Yeah.
If the citizens are clear that this is a path, then I think our job is to regulate and be mindful and set a reasonable, rational proposal or ordinance. I also am not prepared to draft anything tonight.
And I also
I want
think
more information.
yeah.
I really want to hear from the citizens. That's
some
what I
of these I don't think really are ADU ordinances, because the ones that say you can't rent it and things, if the whole purpose is to create more middle housing, having someone that returns from college and temporarily can't find employment or whatever
They're all
else.
gonna stay at Sean's.
Yeah, isn't to me an ADU, because
where
if
I'm
you
going.
can't rent it or anything, what the purpose of what they've tasked us with is providing this missing housing unit for people to rent and be a part of the community. And so a few of these said you can't rent it, you know, blah, 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 blah. To me, I would just strike those because to me, those aren't really ADUs. That's more like having a relative that you need to accommodate, and whether it be someone that has an illness or whatever else, you know?
Let's get kind of a, oh, Pam, go ahead.
Are we better off having community members in to hear what they have to say before we begin to draft things? Or are we running in circles before we hear from
Yeah.
them?
I don't, I've.
Or we get the
I
survey.
would love
Yeah,
to have the
wait for
input,
the
and
survey.
I would
Yeah.
love to
Survey.
have the city commission have the input as well.
Yes.
Because if
Yeah.
we don't, I'm not reading, if we put the word out or whatever we do, and we end up with 100 people in here and all of them are against it, maybe the city commission needs to know that or would want to know that. If we have had people in, when we were discussing short-term rentals downtown. Okay, we had a citizen in here, who wanted us to think about short-term rentals in residential. She could, for the purpose of making money on her property. Nice lady. I remember and I thought, what a sea change that is. We've come full circle in 20 years. But reasonable minds can differ on this. And I just think the
Mhm.
more information we have, but to your point, I'm kind of struggling. That's why I was asking, do we want that in December? Do we want that in January? Before we do a lot of the heavy duty sign ordinance type analysis that you all remember, some of you remember so well. What do you all think? Should we try to do that? They're looking at, should we try and do that earlier before we get into a lot of detailed discussion?
I think that survey especially might, even if we can't
Absolutely need
Yeah.
to
Get
have
the
the
sur-
survey first.
Yes.
survey
Yes.
first,
If we're gonna
then.
do it, let's get the information.
Yeah, then either the group meeting, and then I wondered, should the group meeting be a joint meeting where we
No.
invite? No, okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, let's don't make it any more complicated. Doesn't have to
Right.
be
Okay.
complicated, okay? We've got a fixed time, and people may be able to feel more freely.
I'm
speak more
saying if
freely
we-
with us than they might with
Okay.
everybody. I want citizens to be able to go to the podium and
Right.
nicely tell us what they honestly
And we
Okay.
need
feel.
that before we do a lot of work.
But I think we got some borderline consensus on some things tonight. We're leaving enforceability things aside, but pretty clear,
Yeah.
no short terms, no home occupations, there was concerns. There's some direction there to start, and I didn't hear anyone say, I'm adamantly opposed to these, period, which is a perfectly valid position to take.
I think we've pointed out on several times that is the juice worth the squeeze here.
Yeah,
I mean, if we're trying to fill a housing gap, this isn't doing it.
yeah, this isn't good.
Do we tell the city commission that, explain to us how you think this is gonna do it? Or we just want to check the box and we think ADUs are cool? I'm not getting it.
Mhm.
If you want to put housing units on the top 2 floors of the Fifth Third Bank over there,
Yeah,
Cedarwood,
is that going to be affordable housing? Probably not, but that is far more doable and get more units than,
mhm.
I mean, if you made small one and
Studio or
2 bedroom
1-2 bedroom
apartments
apart-
over there, then you're going to get some units.
Mhm.
I don't see how we're
Yeah.
gonna get units out of this.
Yep.
Once we put all the restrictions in related to parking, related to lot coverage,
Yep,
how many parcels can physically actually support it?
and the owner's financial.
Yeah,
to do it.
the
do it
new
as well.
Buffalo Township thing is like related to what they're allowing residential wise in the downtown areas and stuff. To me, that's perfect. What, because is that even used?
It's underutilized. I don't know
Yeah.
how many tenants are currently.
So there's
in there.
probably a lot of, like, when they, I mean, you guys have already made attempts at helping where you have commercial spaces that, just aren't functioning as commercial spaces. And, some of the changes you've
Right,
already
yeah, that
made are
expansion
all
down Main Street, the
all in the right
expansion down,
direction, you know?
Niles Avenue.
Yeah.
I think there's more meat on those bones than there are on this
Yeah,
one.
like that is a great example. And then, consider, I hate to even use the word, I don't know if I'm gonna say it right, but what's the what's the office building that used to be a medical building that?
Cedarwood.
Cedarwood.
Another
Yeah,
great, another
couldn't think
great
of the
example.
name.
Great example.
That's a great example of, wow, what could you do with Cedarwood? You get a lot more than you get in most neighborhoods, right? So
I suspect we'll hear from the neighbors and.
they won't like
when
it,
that comes.
Cedarwood, yeah.
Well, again, I
Yeah.
mean, but that's okay. I mean, citizens have a
Yeah.
right to let us know
Sure.
what they want. I have no problem with that. And I just think it's encouraging. Was there anything else you all wanted to tell us?
No, I think you guys covered it. The survey would be really like, when kind of work. I mean, obviously we let her work to accept whatever like.
What I read it, maybe I'm reading too much, might have read the minutes from the city commission like you did, so I want to ratchet it back here a little bit. What would they, I am assuming you will be reporting back to the city commission, then they may be listening, I mean, they may be participating by Zoom, I don't know, but listen to the tape or whatever they do. What do you need from us to take back to them, assuming there will be some update for the city commission at a meeting to come before we meet again? What do you need from us?
Just talk with the city manager and say, the planning commission believes a survey needs to be done to get the comments from the residents, and they'd like to schedule a public meeting and do some good engagement to learn what people want, and that would likely be in January.
That's good.
That's all we got. Can we come up with, we're good at, did we do more than that? We talked about some substantive topics
Yeah.
in an attempt to get some consensus
Yeah.
on some points.
No, we could
Short-term
put-
rental,
no short-term rental.
Home occupations.
Home occupation,
Yep.
I think those were the two big ones that I got out of it.
Parking,
Yep.
parking is, we're still working on that creative solution a commissioner said we might come up with. Right. Well, and we did talk about, and we talked about possible necessary other ordinance modifications to accomplish that. Thank you. Let's
Right.
give Mr. Everett credit for the point. The doing away of overnight parking restrictions. And that goes right back to the city, but we did talk, I'm just trying to give you that bullet. They
No.
seem to be very concerned that we were gonna lose this somewhere in the ozone or not come back to it or forget about it. And I wanna make sure they know we are doing this, but citizens and business first, but it'll be on our agenda till we work through all of this, so.
So
To your point, but mentioned it before, but and Chris suggested finding out what the other communities, what has been the impact of allowing it.
Sure.
I think that's helpful information. It kind of gets back to the whole question on whether it's worth
Juice worth the squeeze.
that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just getting more information is helpful.
It's helpful.
just a comment on this survey. I think people need to understand the ramifications of what it is. So it's not just a survey, do you want ADUs or not? But I think things like, well, it impacts lot coverage, it impacts density, it impacts parking. So somehow in that survey, I think people need to understand what this means.
Yeah.
Other than we're just addressing a housing issue.
So the question, if you do think parking should be required if you have one of these,
Yeah.
and if so, how should that work?
Yeah.
Should it be, you can ask questions, on-site or on-street parking?
And
Or just ask, do you think overnight a restriction overnight parking should be lifted in the city of St. Joe to accommodate ADUs? I mean, I'm no good at drafting surveys and stuff, but I've never done one, but people who are smarter than I on that can do that. But those are kind of nuts and bolts issues, I think, Tony.
yeah, I just think if we're gonna have this to be effective, they need to understand the
Yeah.
ramifications.
Yeah, that there are a
And it
lot
would
of
be
issues.
great to
How
get the
high?
input.
Yeah,
can
how
you
high,
get-
if you're all in a single family ranch community and your neighbor builds a 35-foot tall.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
5 feet, weren't some of them like 5 feet from the lot line in some of these? Yeah, 5 feet from the lot line, are you gonna be okay with that? You know,
All
so,
right, I'm sorry.
right,
Right.
yeah,
Or what if you already have something that is not formed?
yeah, do we allow it?
Do we allow it to become an ADU?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another.
Yeah,
one to
because
add
if
that
this,
to the
if
list.
the rear setback is 30 feet, but you allow a garage because a garage is a necessity, then is an ADU above the garage a necessity? That's the thing that, there's a lot of.
Right. Well, I think we've probably exhausted, unless anybody else has, so, staff, anything for us? We give you a start. Anything for us? Any,
Time the December meeting, what might be.
Yep.
So I'll
Would,
send an email out on Tuesday.
would you please just give us an idea of what we know is gonna be on citizen-wide business? And obviously, this goes on it, if we get there, it just depends on how many citizen applications we have. Other commissioner questions about anything for staff or anything?
I have a question about something in the newspaper for staff, especially for the city attorney.
Oh, you're in trouble, Lori.
No, she's not. I'm gonna ask for a clarification. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna read this. So when asked about some things that, potential candidates, talked about, they mentioned
Those guys didn't like us.
city zoning ordinance to encourage builders to work in the area, but also said the planning commission should be more relaxed in their current readings of the ordinance. You write an ordinance, it's black and white, it's very clear, but the world isn't. This world is not black and white by any means, and so the planning commission, in my experience, has been very rigid. They lean on that ordinance too much and they hide behind it. Here's my question.
He didn't
Are
like
we allowed to interpret the ordinance how we feel when we want to? Can we basically not follow the objectives and the criteria that is part of what you give us every time and not, like, I was,
We have to follow.
I
the
was
ordinances.
personally offended. So I just want you to clarify if there is room for, huh?
He lost.
Well, but is there room for us to, do we have a nilly-willy where we don't have to follow it and we don't have to follow those guidelines that you guys always put in that packet?
There's a lot of misunderstanding about what staff and different commissions and boards can and cannot do. If there's
Okay.
a law in place that needs to be followed.
Okay,
I mean, there are some areas that, you know, may be subject to judgment call to some degree, or if you're looking at ordinances and changing them, then you can, you know, adapt. You know, again, trying to fit whatever your goals are and craft the ordinance around that, but, I think a lot of people don't clearly understand what has to be done to follow the law.
so since we're recording for clarity, we have to follow the ordinance. We're not being rigid. We're not hiding behind it. It's what we're required to do. Okay, thank you.
And he lost.
Well, that doesn't matter to me. I
Well,
just,
I'm just through there, I'm being flippant.
because I just feel
It
when,
was offensive as
Yeah.
directed to this body. I chose after. the
I
election
just feel
results to
like
not address
nobody
it.
pays me to come here. You know, we do it out of, no, do you get paid?
No.
Okay, so no one pays us to come in here. We do the best we can. We've always been told that you follow those objectives. They're not subjective, they're objective. So
but here's
how
the-
can we,
Kathy, here's where I think some, this gentleman, I don't remember being in a planning commission, so maybe he just.
didn't
never been
realize?
here, Didn't realize. A lot of our criteria that are in the ordinance we're required to follow are nothing short of completely subjective. So it is a little bit of both. worlds, and
Some
maybe-
are.
Some are, but
Yeah.
when you say, does it fit into the character of the neighborhood? Well, Jiminy, go down your block and every single neighborhood is gonna have a different view of what works in that neighborhood. That's a subjective criteria. Yet we must follow that criteria.
Yeah.
And because it's subjective, we can have 9 different opinions on whether something works in the front yard, the backyard, whether you like those plant stands in the front yard or you want the elevated plant boxes. You're gonna get 9 different opinions. It's a subjective criteria that is required to be considered in the ordinance. And perhaps this individual didn't quite understand the nuance of that.
I
I'm
get that
just
part, but the
Leave it at
part,
that.
the part where certain things, you know, the setbacks, the this, the that, we can't change those unless we change the ordinance, right?
Or unless it's
and-
within a PUD or some other things where we have some flexibility,
Okay.
but in general, no.
Okay,
That's his department over there at the ZBA and you gotta
Yeah.
go there. We have rules and we follow the rules.
okay.
All right, is there anything else to bring to the attention of staff or the commission? And if not, do I have a motion? to
I'll make a
adjourn? Thank you,
motion
Ms.
to
Burzak.
adjourn.
I'll second it.
Mr. Plica seconds that motion. Any discussion? How dare you? No, there is no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you for being here. Tell your friends.
Well.